coming up on this episode of Once a Duck. The biggest advantage is you have that length and you're able to cover so much that your linebackers are able to roam free and you're able to get those tackles in between the gaps with arms. And all that and more coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another episode of the Once a Duck podcast. We are here to talk all about your Oregon Ducks, their game against Montana State, and of course, the upcoming matchup with Oklahoma State. As always, here is the one, the only, Nick Cody. Nick, how you doing this week?
After a great Ducks win and an opening week of college football that felt fantastic, how could I be doing any better? Especially sitting here talking with you, my man, Samuel Schmidt. Guys, follow him, Samuel101TS on all the social medias, and me at Nick R. Cody. Or more importantly, make sure you're following at Once a Duck, and let us know if you like this podcast by liking and subscribing and commenting down below and being a part of the conversation, because we always love that. Sam, you know what? Even more importantly, I love just seeing that first overreaction from every single person from that first week of college football, albeit what it be. We'll get to the Oregon specific ones, but there have been all kinds all across college football. But even more importantly, it's been great. The one overreaction that we all deserve to acknowledge as Oregon fans that is deserved is the outpouring of love for Lee Corso on College Game Day. I thought that was the most watched episode of College Game Day of all time, and deservedly so. And I still haven't watched it, but I did watch the Ducks tribute to it. I did watch our portion of it, and it is awesome to see just that connection we've had with Lee throughout his entire time. And even though these last couple of years were really kind of hard to watch, at least college football's back. We got to give her Lee a great send off, and we got a Ducks win. So great weekend, and can't say much more than that.
I mean, I think that's a great way to put it. And I don't know what overreaction you're talking about, Nick. We're natty as hell, bro. That's all that matters right now. We're blue bloods and natty. No, it's wow. There's overreaction, and it's exciting, and that's fun. That's the point of it. That's what happens after a game one, man. That's what we get to do.
You sound way too accurate with that, but
you know I am. You know that is so ever so slightly an exaggeration, and it's not even really. But yeah, that's exactly the reaction you're getting. Of course, shout out Lee Corso. It was great to see him on there one last time. As somebody who's been able to experience some college game days before, it's a pleasure to be able to see the legend work in person and work from afar. Now, on to the weekend that we just had. Nick, I can't tell you how excited I was to be back in Eugene. I can't tell you how excited I was to be back amongst the Oregon football community. And I can't tell you how excited I was to be able to stand there. Yes, I said stand there and watch another Oregon football season get underway. From where you were, I would love to hear some of your initial thoughts on just kind of what you were able to see from this team. And then, of course, I can tell you everything we were able to witness from the stands.
Yeah, shout out to all the Seattle Ducks out there I got to meet this weekend. Found out that I didn't even really even know until this weekend how ducked out GameWorks is. I've been kind of always too busy on Saturdays, either getting down there for game day. So the owners of GameWorks make sure that all staff is wearing some kind of Oregon jersey, and so you're already right. That's there.
Good options.
Anybody in the Seattle area, I already highly recommend it. Great setup they had for us, TVs everywhere. And just shout out to all those folks, because it was awesome. I didn't miss a dang an angle. I did leave a little early based on how the game was and what I had planned for that day. But yeah, just getting to see everybody out there and all celebrating as we got to usher in a new era of quarterbacks, which seems pretty confident with Dante Moore going 18 of 23, and then getting to play five quarterbacks in the game. I'm listening to, Jorgie and Jerry Allen even on the way home. And once I hear we're already putting Moga in, and then I'm having to look down the roster to see what we're putting a fifth quarterback in. That is a great day. You got guys a ton of reps, even on the offensive line when you didn't really want to have to make a substitution. Injury forced you to shuffle some things up early and try some different things, which is really great to see early in this season because you never know what kind of lineup when you get into those October, November games you're going to be putting out there for your offensive line to gel together. It's great to see. And, there was a lot of opportunities I saw with a great attacking defense. A little bit surprised, I think everybody was, to see Montana State come out with a passing attack that was a little bit more effective than the running attack. But again, probably what our defensive focus was, shutting down the run, and it felt very successful in that. So all things included, it looked like a day that all of us in Seattle were sitting there very jealous of because the weather did not look nearly as nice and the shout was not nearly as fun at GameWorks.
Well, I mean, Nick, I hate to tell you, but I don't think it's ever quite going to hit anywhere the way that it hits in Autzen Stadium.
No.
Before we really get into everything from this game, I do want to point out one thing that does need to be noted. On our last episode, I believe it was, you predicted Dante Moore would finish 80% passing with 3 touchdowns. He finished with 3 touchdowns, and 18 of 23 is 78.26%. You might think this is me getting on. This is me saying congratulations.
I mean,
that's within, you're within 2%. You're within 2% right there. That is about as good as any of these predictions are ever going to go for us on here. So congratulations. Way to nail that one. I was very glad about it.
There was a chance I was like, my score prediction was feeling pretty good for a second too.
It was looking really, really good for a minute. I was going to get into that a little bit more as we get into like our breakdown of the game as it happened. But there absolutely was that moment where I was sitting there feeling okay. I remember last week I had said I expect about 31 by halftime. And when Montana State had the ball back with, just about a minute left, we had 31 on the board. I was like, oh, okay. Looks about exactly what was expected. And then I think we got the most impressive Oregon drive of the entire day. And it's one that we're going to get into a lot more. But operating with only one timeout, you didn't even need it, by the way, but operating with only one timeout, under a minute, able to get all the way down the field and get into the end zone for 6 points plus an extra, that was some really, really impressive stuff. But before any of that, before we get to all of that, there was one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. It was the one thing that we had the biggest question on, I would say, heading into week 1. And it was not the talent of the offensive line, but how they would mesh together. I'd love to hear what you saw. To me, it seemed as if no matter who the 5 were working as one.
I really agree with that, and that's always a key to playing up front. The most important thing is I think we saw a lot of leadership out there, especially it's the most important in Oregon's offense, always has been the center position, and Poncho is got it locked down and has become everything I think we've expected of him, and he's one of those guys that's such a young vet now that it's fun to see, and he can also play anywhere on that offensive line. You can feel pretty comfortable. Then looking at our tackles we brought in at the transfers, I love the balance of athleticism and aggression. Like when you're graduating guys like Johnny Cornelius and Josh Connerly Jr., that's tough to replace. And you're trying to develop guys and always out there. But if you can get transfers with that kind of experience and that are that highly rated, you got to give it to him. Pregnon, we got to see, got a little bit injured and on the sidelines, but that got Kavika out there a little bit and mixed things up, and got Iuli, moving around, getting a couple more reps. Bedford getting to see out there. This is probably one of the deepest offensive lines we've had since I played, and like that 2012 season, I think nobody, you go in, even, yeah, Fiesta Bowl aside, you go into that season, that is one of the deepest offensive lines. And this, at least if we can keep everybody healthy, knock on wood, this seems to be one that, yeah, we can mix and match. We got a lot of guys. And again, the big thing I love is Dan Lanning has really preached with this team about just bonding and caring about each other. And now that this is really his program, everything that he's wanted rooted in all his guys, these guys' belief in each other, that really carries through up front. That really determines it for the rest of the team. Because man, when you see those offensive linemen, those guys are that's what drives your team. Because those guys aren't scoring. Everybody is the one that wants to go out there and just celebrate and celebrate someone else's success. When you see that, you have the makings of a really good team.
Well, and I completely agree with you, Nick. And I think something that was so impressive to me was the combination, as you mentioned, the physicality and the athleticism, but also how capable each member was and the entire unit was, whether it was a run situation or a pass situation. I don't think there was a single time this game where you really saw Moore, Novastad, or either of the other quarterbacks really feeling that much pressure when it wasn't a situation where they were choosing to go themselves or it was designed for them to go. And then for the running backs, I mean, my goodness, there were for sure some instances where things were tricky, but there were some huge holes out there. There were some huge holes between the tackles. I believe if I'm remembering, I saw it right. I think Oregon ran of their run plays, 2/3 were to the inside, 1/3 was to the outside. And of those inside runs, they were creating some real big holes, especially that starting unit. And I think the things that were so impressive is not only were they able to create really good holes through the middle, this entire unit was doing such a good job of getting push all one direction and letting a running back cut back the other way. The very first play of the game, I believe Noah Whittington was able to get off a good run because of that exact same style of play. You saw Lamar score on that exact same drive doing something similar. The adaptability, the way these players move, the way that they're proficient in both the pass block and the run block, I am so excited to see them continuing to develop. And I'm really excited for the matchup this week just to see how they are against bigger humans. These are going to be big boys. These are big bodies. These are Oklahoma kids coming in, Oklahoma State. You know that they're going to recruit some big Midwest boys. I'm really excited to see how Oregon's line handles, if not a huge elevation in talent, which I believe there will be, a big elevation in size.
So I think the biggest thing, though, with the offensive line being successful, quarterback, receiver, everything looking good, a lot of things people were expecting out of this first game was more play out of Mekhi Hughes. So we got a lot in the 2-minute drill and situations where Dan Lanning explained in the press conference where maybe that they might have switched into a pass because of, a loaded box or some situation like that. But overall, this running back room looks loaded. It was awesome to see a lot of the guys that had gotten a couple touches in the previous years really step up. It looked awesome to finally have a real red zone back, and overall, best to see Noah Whittington back at full speed. It looked like pre-injury, like you never know how somebody's going to respond to injury. And obviously last year, limited touches, it was taking a little bit to get him into his stride. But man, from the very get-go of the game, it was fun to see him get into his zone.
It absolutely was. Noah Whittington, 10 rushes, 68 yards, and the touchdown. He looked really solid. Really, only getting those 10 carries, you can expect a guy like him to probably be getting double that or close to double that in one of these really competitive games. That is in past Oregon years, because I don't think that's going to be necessary this year, at least to the same degree with the depth of this running back room. You mentioned Mekhi Hughes, who I think we all know is very talented, and we would like to be able to see get out there a little bit more at some point. But beyond that, Jaden Lamar looked really good in his opening run, especially in that first quarter. They let him get into the end zone for the touchdown, where he got himself into the end zone for that touchdown. He was able to, I think, have, besides the quarterbacks, and I think De'Aaron Hill, he had the most yards per carry of anybody in that game with 6.7. We mentioned he had that touchdown. I think also we were able to see some really good work out of Jay Harris. He only had the one run, was for 2 yards. He also had the big catch and run afterwards. And there were a few times where he was really getting in there on picking up some rushers that was a look that I don't think he was really showing a ton last season, and was part of the reasons why he might have gotten a ton of play. I think all these guys have been developing. They've all looked really solid. Even Riggs looked good in the late run he got. But man, can we start talking freshmen yet? Because I am so excited to talk about these freshmen.
It's an important part of this game, and I mean, obviously, the easiest part to start is the highlight that's continued to go throughout. You know, not just Oregon, but the Big Ten itself, and that's Decorian Moore. Not just with the any catching highlights. This guy got a highlight blocking the wrong guy, according to Dan Lanning. And you know what? It was so good. The guy that scored the touchdown, Gary Bryant Jr., had to just go celebrate with him. I love seeing that as a former offensive lineman. That's everything I love about Oregon. Effort and just speed and technique sometimes might just, beat scheme.
Well, man, speaking of these freshmen, yeah, Moore's number 2 on my list right now. I put together a list of these top 5 freshmen that just
Oh, love it.
completely grabbed my attention watching this game. And Moore was number 2 on that list. And I think the thing that was most impressive for me was the fact that he looked completely up to speed. He looked ready to go. He stepped out on that field with the exact same intention and the exact same capability as all the rest of those wide receivers, which isn't a downgrade to any of them. It just shows you how prepared and how capable this guy is. He's the number 1 receiver in the country, and he looked like it. Not only was he out there making the grabs he needed to make, not only was he out there, on that reverse play, being able to pick up some really big yards in a situation where you're letting him be athletic, but he was blocking. It was that, of course, that play to Gary Bryant Jr. that everybody's seen, the one that Lanning commented on, right? He's blocking the wrong guy, but he's blocking his ass off. Love to see that. Maybe not blocking the wrong guy, but I love seeing you block your ass off. But what I love so much that was just so impressive to me, and it's again just this idea that you can come in immediately and just be one of those guys. He is one of the starters on this team. He is one of those top 3, I would say top 4 receivers at this point, not including the tight end position. And man alive, I was so impressed by what he was able to do out there, and I cannot wait for these next couple of years to be able to watch him continue to grow and develop. A few other freshmen that made this list. We were just speaking about running backs. I have
Yeah,
to mention Davison and Hill. The Thunder and Lightning is real. The
yeah,
Thunder and Lightning is real. We were
absolutely.
talking last week just a little bit like, hey, this running back freshman class has some words about him. People are saying some good things. This feels like one of the better. Wow, wow, 3 touchdowns from Davison, which, by the way, some real Cyrus B. Belicchio numbers here. Shout out a friend of the podcast. Tell me about this: 6 carries, 26 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's called getting it done right there, including that one in the fourth quarter where they just needed somebody to be able to bomb it into the end zone, and he was able to get that done. But also,
All
Garrett
all you're
Hill.
all you're missing from one of those is just hurdling somebody, and we have
No
that
kidding.
taken care of in other
No
positions.
kidding. We got that in. We got that in. If he needs to go look at some Holiday Bowl Garrett Blunt tape just to figure it out, we can get that to Davison. But my goodness, he's doing everything else right. And then Garrett Hill, who wasn't able to get into the end zone, but out of all the running backs, he had the most yards per carry.
9.6 yards per carry.
Exactly. 5 carries, 48 yards. He had the 28-yard burst, which, got him a big chunk of that, but still, I am so excited, man, to be able to watch this group play. These running backs are so exciting. These 2 freshmen really stuck out to me. A couple of other freshmen, these 2 on the defensive side that, really stuck out and that I was excited to see out there. Nasir Wyatt, true freshman coming in, playing in an edge room that is already so stacked. I mean, we could get into it talking here. We're probably going to throughout the season. The front for this defensive unit is so strong, and the fact that you were able to get a freshman in here who's able to go make a play is so damn exciting. The other one who played the majority of the game, who I was just really impressed by, Brandon Finney Jr. My goodness, coming in as an 18-year-old freshman and being out there, tracing everybody, coming in, hitting hard, following guys across, doing some really good work, man. I've got an entire notes section written down about how impressed I was by all the young DBs, whether it was Finney Jr., whether it was Iffy, whether it was Kingston getting in there late, whether it was Flowers, who was just absolutely cracking people. The youth on this team is thrilling, and I could not be more excited for what is to come from these units.
And another advantage of coming out and being so efficient in scoring with our first couple drives is we get to see that youth, and that we get to, put what this is what we get to put on tape for game one of the season compared to last year, where Idaho, you're already showing a lot of our weaknesses right there that actually came up to kick our ass in the Rose Bowl. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I am very interested to hear long term. There was an interview, the press conference for this week, hearing Poncho talk about some of the things that maybe they did a little bit differently for recovery. Reminds me a lot of the things that adjusted for Chip in his third year when I was finally able to be a starter. And yeah, just everything kind of felt like it came together from the program standpoint of what the vision was. And you didn't have to explain it to people. Everybody that came in knew they lived it because they'd been pitched it. And that's the thing when you get to your, third, fourth year of a program, that's really the difference right there between those first couple years. And if you hear that out of the players, that's so important because it's just going to trickle down.
And I mean, I am so excited to see how it trickles down and affects all of these different players. And what I love is the fact that this is a coaching staff that is going out and also bringing in players that match exactly what it is they're looking to build within this team. One more thing about Decorio Moore while we're on the subject, while we're,
Yeah,
can I tell you exactly what I said after that block and after seeing that and what immediately came to my mind?
please do. Please share with the room.
That was, now that the room's listening, the that was the most interested most interested in blocking and impressive block I've seen from an Oregon wide receiver since Keenan Lowe was on the team.
Ooh.
And
Yeah,
that's not to discount a lot of other guys who were good. Like Charles Nelson could get out and block. Johnny Johnson could get out and block. These guys who weren't afraid of contact. But in terms of just seeing somebody who gets like an equal amount of joy out of that contact and out of clearing the lane for somebody else, Keenan Lowe is the first one that came to mind.
yeah,
Because if you go watch a lot of those Mariota era highlights,
yeah.
who's out in front of
Oh
those
yeah.
receivers? Who's out in front of D'Anthony
Oh yeah.
Thomas? Who's out in front of Josh Huff?
Yeah, and
Off of Keenan Lowe.
and that was one of the most interesting transitions from when Chip left because that was you weren't getting the ball thrown to you in Chip's offense,
No
and that
block,
was
no
one of the
rock, baby.
no block, no rock, and I'm telling you right there that you definitely, yeah, when you say that initially, I think, oh yeah, my era, dude, we had guys as shit. They were better blockers than passers for the most part. Oregon's gotten yeah, a really good blend now of guys that have a bit of both. They have the athleticism, they have the size, and they finally have that just go that just says, even if I'm not getting the ball, man, I can make my presence known on the field. And Decory Moore, I mean, there's gradings out there that have him the best blocking graded receiver of all time for this week, and it's like, come on, these guys don't know what the scheme was. Lanning told you right there he blocked the wrong guy. That's why Gary Bryant Jr. had to shed the first guy off. But yeah, the effort right there, you can't coach that, and that means that guy's gonna get it coached up. He's gonna know the next time he takes that rep, because if he cares that much, he's going to study it, and when his coach tells him how to correct it, he's going to fix it. You love to see that, and it's not just him. That's going to be contagious. That's going to be everybody in that wide receiver room is going to benefit from seeing that in the film room and knowing they got a guy like that in their room, because everybody's going to, try to live up to that when he catches the ball. I love to see that. Even more than that, I love to see what we have from our tight ends, because it starts with Kenyon Sadiq, the guy, we already mentioned the hurdles, highlight reel meant to happen already. We're feeding him the ball. There was a couple times there, he was already trying to make a move before he got the ball in his hands. But man, that guy plays on every single level, and it was really awesome seeing him not only hurdle the guy, but then the same guy the next play he pancake blocks him basically, and you're like, man,
Tough
that's
day at the
just
office.
that is just a level of fierceness, because there's no quit. It's football. That's the great thing you love to see in somebody. And if you step on that field, there's no mercy, man. We'll be reasonable within those lines, but Yep. Even if I'm gonna embarrass you, I'm gonna have to do it for my team.
Well, man, I'm really glad you brought up these tight ends because I was actually impressed by the entire group. I think it was a group that a lot of people going into this year weren't very sure about. The depth was a little bit questioned. And yes, Kenyon Sadiq very well could be the best tight end in the country. Very, very well could be very well, especially with the way NFL offenses are working these days, could work himself up into being a first round pick if all goes right.
Yeah.
Completely possible. That being said, the other guys were impressive to me too. Jamari Johnson, the transfer from Louisville, when he was able to get in there. The thing that impressed me most is he was extremely willing to get out and block, just like so many of these receivers are. He didn't have a catch in this game, but what he did do is he was the leading blocker on that Decorium Moore run play where he was able to take it around the outside. If you watch that play, you see Johnson just get there and clear a guy completely out of the way, knocks him into another defender. It's not until Moore's past that where he runs into trouble. He was phenomenal there. Another guy I want to give a shout out to, Zach Gracie back there blocking again. So excited to be able to see that. He's somebody the last year or two when he's been able to line up, play fullback. It's been a lot of fun to see him do it. And I really love this loaded backfield look they're giving where they have two tight ends on each side when they've got Gracie on one side and they've got Sadiq on the other. Sadiq had a couple of really nice seal blocks that led to touchdowns from that exact formation, and Gracie's the first one to get his head in there as well. That's a group that I was really, really impressed with. We weren't sure what we were going to see, but they delivered.
Yeah, well, but we got to obviously talk about the defense, kind of guys that stuck out as a whole. I don't want to get, obviously we saw so many guys on the side of the ball. Obviously, the guy that stood out to Tuioti and Amari Washington, man, those guys just wreaked havoc the entire day. Felt like they were a step ahead from the snap count every single play that they were in there, creating havoc in the backside, and then uh, Dylan Thieneman, dude, getting four solo tackles at the end of the day because there was a while there on the TV they were talking, oh well, he hasn't. They haven't really looked at him today, but him back there at the free safety position makes me feel really, really confident in this defense's ability to bend but not break.
Well, and I really loved being able to see Thieneman kind of be able to roam a little bit back there and then watch Flowers just come up and smack people. Be able
Yes.
to really lay down that hurt. I love being able to do that with your two safeties. I love the options that Oregon has with their secondary. There's a lot of youth there for sure. You're probably going to see some young mistakes throughout the season, especially as time goes on. If I'm going to be very honest with you, that Penn State game, you're probably going to see some shaky moments. But that being said, I am really, really excited to be able to see this group continue to develop, especially that secondary. But my God, Nick, we need to talk about the defensive front. We need to talk about this group, right? And I'm going to technically, I'm pretty sure most of the time you would call it a 3-4, but almost every time Lanning has four guys rushing. So I'm just going to be talking about the four guys who are almost always in contact.
We used to call it a KC front. Basically, they're four down guys, but there's three guys with their hand in the ground, but they're lining up in the right shades. That you've still got your basic 1-3 techniques, and then two defensive ends. But you got one stand-up defensive end that can kind of be a little bit of a trickster right there.
Well, man, this entire group, I don't know the last time when you could look at, if we're saying group of four, first four, second four, and seeing 8 guys who could very well be starting at 99% of D1 programs, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're looking at and this was just me taking notes on my phone while at the game, standing there in Autzen, a few deep already. So we're shaking on this, but being able to see this group line up and be able to come out where you have Washington on one side in the middle, and then lined up next to him, you have Gray for the majority of the time. And then you have Green, who's able to come in there and shift out. You've got Alexander, who's in there with that second group. That is so nasty. It is so nasty. They were moving around who was lined up over the center, who was going to be moving. They had it all changed. But my gosh, being able just to see the different combinations of D linemen they were throwing at you, whether it was the Washington Bear Alexander duo, whether it was getting Green or Gray in there, it is such a good group, man. And it's so crazy because you had two guys that were just drafted last year that are on NFL rosters right now. One of them was a first-round pick. And I'm still sitting here going, is this group maybe better?
And the crazy thing to me is I remember the talk going into the season is, oh, there's going to be so much focus on Mateo. How, he might not be able to get to the same sack total as last season. He got his two
He's getting
tackles were
there.
2 sacks. I mean, they got to, this is a nightmare for offensive linemen because somebody is getting soloed up with someone that is outmatching them. I'm sorry. And especially looking around week 1 in this Big Ten conference, I don't think maybe if we see Ohio State in the playoffs in the postseason somehow, maybe they match up, but I do not see a whole lot of offensive linemen that that are going to look and be that guy soloed up one-on-one with even someone, again, a Bear Alexander. That's a guy that's, again, very highly touted, and it seems like is adjusting here way better than he has previously at Georgia and USC because of that buy-in that Dan Lanning preaches. And it means maybe you aren't the guy, but you're going to get your opportunity to be the guy in your moment and be a part of this team. And man, if their buy-in is that great, we haven't seen a defensive line like this at Oregon. And that's insane to say when we had a national championship team that included two potential Hall of Fame defensive linemen in DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. So I'm telling you, man, this is a special unit. It's going to be fun to watch them this season, and I just hope they can all stay healthy. And man, another guy, linebacker pressure, Blake Purchase, guy that just come out there and just completely.
Looked great. Looked so good.
Not and he looked great, and I was like, you're sitting
Number
there,
9 works on him.
and exactly, you're sitting there, you're thinking, it must be the work he put in, but the number helps make it stand out.
That 9 looks good.
I love
I'm
it.
just gonna say any interior offensive line that's going up against Oregon this year. Bear Alexander, 6'3", 302. Tione Gray,
Yeah,
6'6", 336.
yeah.
Amari
Good.
Washington, 6'3", 330. Terrence Green, 6'5", 330.
It's like enjoy your leverage advantage.
Yeah, yeah.
You better be bringing it. That is the one thing I do consider and worry about. But if we get timing off the ball like we get, the biggest advantage is you have that length and you're able to cover so much that your linebackers are able to roam free and you're able to get those tackles in between the gaps with arms. And and there's just those ways that you can close up so many gaps. And then as long as we get that initial get off, we have such hand length that if you're a quarterback, dude, you are going to have a difficult time getting the ball out at an advantage point that it's not going to be batted down by one of those guys too. So it's just awesome to see the we've just really never been able to again recruit on the level we have these past few years, and we're finally seeing the fruits of that. Is having a Everybody used to say, oh, the difference between the West Coast and everyone else is the defensive line, and yeah, we have it out here.
Oregon 100% does have it. I'm so excited to see how this group continues to evolve and change. You mentioned that get off the snap, and I think that's what Washington was doing so well. And I'm excited to see him continue just to completely blow up plays before they even start throughout this season. Last thing we want to touch on before moving on from this first opening game, really briefly, just in a couple minutes, want to talk special teams with you. Obviously, Atticus Sappington went out there, did his thing. Oregon didn't have to punt. I believe you know what? Let me pull it up really quick because I can do such. The new punter actually was has had one of my favorite lines on the whole thing. And he was basically like, "Hey Dante, thank you for not making me have to do anything." Which anytime you can get that kind of a response out of your anytime you're able to get that response out of your punter, things are going pretty well. But the thing that I wanted to talk to you about very quickly, Nick, not one, two punt blocks, a tip punt technically, but two punts interfered with. Our guy J Mac getting involved with both of those, Jeremiah McClellan getting in there. And just like you were talking about, Nick, receivers from your era know this especially. If you're going to contribute, one of the great places to do it is special teams.
Of course, because we always know on special teams, what do we got to be?
Special.
And we are here. If you're following Once a Duck, you've been here long enough. You know it already, man. And they were close all day. Every time we were watching, they're at GameWorks. We were all going, "Oh yeah, one of the from the very first punt, we're like, we're getting one of these." It was very obvious. We had them scouted out and we're ready to go, and we had the effort to get there. Man, the other thing I wanted to note though before we wrap up in special teams, and of course, blocking.
By the way, really quickly,
Yeah,
James Ferguson Reynolds. Sorry for not having that name off the top of the head yet,
there you
but
go.
there we go.
There you go.
He didn't get any action. He wasn't even needed. His
Well,
tweet literally said, "Thanks for
I'll
the fun day."
I'll I'll make it up for you because not only did we have Atticus Sappington with 5 for 5 in extra points, we got Gage Herreich. I'm gonna say I don't know how they said it in Austin, but we had 3 for 3. So when you're able to get that extra kicker out there, get 3 points on the board individually with kicks, I'm enjoying that. So overall, special teams felt really everybody went out there, executed. You got an opponent like Montana State that of course, they're undermatched personnel wise, but have been very, very sound, have been a playoff team. They obviously went out there and really felt like they had to go and execute. And we saw in the very early games last season where they would have to end up changing the game for us. They felt like they were prepared to change the game for us at any moment. Thankfully, they didn't really have to, they just did.
Nick, before we get out of here, before we wrap up this particular segment, any other last thoughts you have from that game?
Yeah, I wish I was there. GameWorks is great, but yeah, it's always fun, especially when you've got a game like that. You get to see how much fun the players have during shout when they're able to cut it loose a little bit. Again, and the sun just doesn't shine quite as bright here in Seattle in those nice days. It's we've had some nice ones, but nothing like that when you see it.
Well, you know why
The
that is, right, Nick?
Because it never rains in Autzen Stadium.
Damn right.
So get your damn umbrellas out of here and send them to Seattle. Don, I'm not trying to take your job,
I think he's
but I
safe.
but I would someday. And with that, I want to ask you, Sam, how did you honestly? What anything you want to wrap up from the game you missed, especially the where your Autzen Stadium experience? Because you kind of threw it over to me before you were able to say you were obviously out there for the tailgate with our friends, and yeah, you were connecting with me via video chat as I was getting ready
Trying
to
to.
leave. Yeah, it was fun.
Oh man. Well, I'll just say this before we wrap up this segment. I appreciate everybody out there. Autzen is a hell of an experience. I could have my heart broken by the guys on the field 1,000 times, and the reason I'm still going to be going back are all the people that are making it all possible. So, thank you all. We appreciate you guys. Nick, I think it's time that we start moving this thing along. I think we got something else to get to.
So we asked you guys, all of you that are following on our social media accounts at Once a Duck, and hopefully you are, wherever you're following, even if it's on the the most difficult one for me to follow, at least right now. That's Twitter, or at least formerly known as X. Uh, we got a tweet. We got at Dustin underscore Rains said, happy to see the fall start slash expected outcome opposite of Idaho. What I want to see in week 2 that I didn't see is a Tuioti sack, continued low penalties also. Yeah, I think that's a big thing we didn't hit on our recap. This was a disciplined outcome from the Oregon Ducks. We didn't see all the kind of mishaps, especially pre-penalty or pre-snap, that you can tend to have in these games. And we saw it with plenty of other teams in college football in week 1, and it felt like Oregon had a lot of those things honed in. It felt like a lot of their things that they needed to work on were actually just schematically instead of procedurally, and that is a big thing in college football. If that is your week 1 problems, then you are on a great track because you covered all your procedurals.
Another one we got from Eric Hovland. We appreciate you, Eric, because you reach out to us a lot, you interact with us a lot, and we appreciate you doing so. He said, happy to see the O-line gelling faster and so many freshmen and sophomores playing well in their first extended outings. I could not agree more. You heard how excited I was about the freshmen and the young guys in that first segment. And my God, I could not agree anymore, Eric. That is exactly what I am looking for as well. What Eric's looking for, what he wants to see in week 2 that wasn't there in week 1, he wants to see how the running back room shakes out. I think that's something we're all interested in. I think everyone's a bit curious to see where these things fall into place in terms of who's getting carries, when, and where. Also, another point he added that I find very interesting. Also, would love to see Novastad get more than one drive, which is something that I kind of definitely agree with as well. We got the Dante Moore experience. We know what he can provide. And then we got a little glimpse of everybody else. But if Novastad's the guy who everyone has been saying that he is, and I have no reason to believe he isn't, I absolutely want to see more out of this kid. Let him go sling the rock a little bit, all right? He had the big completion to Casper. Let him go out there and throw a little bit.
Yeah, and throw more than 2 passes. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, his it would be interesting, but then again, you have to balance with this team and everything you have going on. It does feel like everybody with the leadership of Dante Moore is behind it. It would be great though to have an opportunity with an Oklahoma State team coming in that we can transition to. There's already making excuses for this game. And it would be great to go ahead and light up the scoreboard. I would feel a little bad. We had opportunities to fulfill everything I said in my prediction in this game last week. That's why I'm leaning this prediction week, man. Maybe they might have stoked the fires of Dan Lanning. That's what I want to know. This week we've seen the guy that used to be, I'm a man, I'm 40, say, I'm a man and an old man, and college football has passed me because he's complaining about money now at a place. Oklahoma State, I remember when we played them and I was a true freshman redshirting, they weren't in a place to complain about money at all. T. Boone Hickens, everything that they had at that time, Oregon and Oklahoma State felt very equal in the platforms of college football, and it reflected that in the rankings at the time of that Holiday Bowl matchup. And I'm telling you right now, things have changed. I am telling you, the mullet hasn't, but college football has, and they have already. The one way, at least it feels like, that Mike Gundy has kept up is his excuses, because the back and forth this week with Oregon and him saying Oregon is spending so much money, it's really been driving more of the conversation than the performance on the field, or even more so, I guess, the overall nature of college football right now, and the haves and the have-nots. But again, as Lanning pointed out, the opponent they played last week were a significant amount of lack of resources, just as Oregon. So, again, this is the world of college football. We just didn't used to explicitly say these things out loud.
I mean, I do want to this is very I have two opinions on this that coincide together, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, Gundy is being Gundy, and anybody who's getting worked up about Gundy being Gundy has not been paying attention to college football for the last 20 years. You look at you can claim to be the biggest college football fan out there. You can tweet about how you watch all the games all the time and how you're doing all the things, and if you're not just extremely intimately aware of exactly the character that Mike Gundy is and what he is bringing to a matchup, you just haven't been paying attention, because besides maybe Mike Leach, I can't think of a bigger just character that's a coach in college football besides Mike Gundy, man. The way he talks, how, like, the things he says, the way the mullet is. I'm a man, I'm 40. It's one of the most classic sports rants of all time. I watched that 4 times this week just getting ready for this game because I'm so dang excited. I don't care what you guys think. I'm watching a legend of the sports talk radio drop buttons hit going out here, man. This is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Number 2, though. Yeah, there is a little bit of irony here when outside of your stadium, you have a 9-foot bronze statue of the first person to ever give a $300+ million donation to an athletics program. There might be a little bit of, might be a little hypocritical there. Maybe just sort of a little tiny bit. It might be. So is it valid to be worried to point out the hypocrisy? Totally. Is it surprising, and should you waste your energy being upset about it? No.
No, and again, I think Dan Lanning has spent more time than anybody has needed to addressing those things the way they have. You can either save to have those excuses, or you can spend to be competitive, and that's
What a line. What a bar that was.
It's almost like, the
I
grass is
know.
damn green in Eugene. This guy knows.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that by the way, that was one of the hardest lines I've heard drop from a college coach, from any coach ever. Some teams are invested in winning, and some teams don't invest, so they have an excuse not. Like, that's crazy. That
You
was a
know,
crazy line, but that was awesome.
and yeah, it goes
That was
back to
wild.
we,
Dance had a hot week, by the way.
we're gonna have to, dude. There's a lore of Dan Lanning that's gonna go down great. Just we aren't playing for clicks, man. We're gonna we're gonna play this on the grass.
Not
Like
not to be that guy, but if we're not playing for clicks, but also check out the documentary series.
hey man, if you got the team, yeah, might as well be doing that instead of whatever. Coach, no, we're not getting into any more big. We're already giving the Big 12 too much credit by giving them a game this week, and if we get to see Colorado in the postseason, that would be fantastic. It seems very
I
unlikely at
don't think
this
it's gonna
point,
happen.
but again, the
They
last
lost to
time
Georgia Tech, man.
and again, the point I'm more trying to make is, we're bringing a team in here that they're in the Big 12. They're already making excuses publicly, like. I don't know. I wish I could be in Autzen this weekend, because it feels like they aren't going to be ready for it, because their coach has already said there's no way he could possibly prepare his backup, essentially quarterback, for this game.
And that's exactly the thing you're going to be looking at. It's going to be the Zane Flores show for Oklahoma State. Haas Henji, I believe is how you pronounce the name. I could be way off of that, but he looked really exciting in the beginning of that game for Oklahoma State. Those first couple of drives, they were moving the ball really well. He was moving well. He's an athletic guy, can get outside of the pocket, make things happen. They were doing so, and they were driving the field really easily. After he went down, their offense went super stagnant. It went super stagnant. They were barely trying anything through the air anymore. Not that I'm saying they have the next NFL gunslinger on their roster either way, but the air game was very limited. And the run game, which had been a very, very productive read option while he was in there and had been keeping, I believe it was a UT Martin, it was keeping their edges definitely on their toes. When Flores was in there, almost everything was a straight handoff. Almost everything was a straight handoff. And to their credit, Oklahoma State does have a couple of talented running backs for sure. I do have a pair of guys that I was watching and I enjoyed being able to see get out there and tote the rock a little bit. But that being said, when everybody knows what's coming, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Oklahoma State to get anything going. The offensive line group isn't a group that I'm necessarily saying is going to be able to stand up to the toughest challenges that college football has to offer. Oregon's team looks like it's one of those. I mean, my goodness, you had an edge from UT Martin who was having a game out there, man. He looked really good. I'm going to pull up the numbers so we can compare it here in just a second. But if you're giving up those types of plays and those types of moments against UT Martin, you really better have a good week in practice before you come to Eugene.
Seriously, and not only that, again, just the narrative coming out of this. Again, we could talk about it with your number one player essentially, maybe not being able to play, but again, it feels like there's potentially so many distractions for both teams, and when you look at the ability to handle distractions after what we've seen in Dan Lanning's tenure, feel pretty confident that we're not going to be able, that Dan Lanning is diffusing any of this with his team internally, and that they were really focused on them. And I think everything that we've put on tape right now, again, limited as it was probably from the playbook, we still have so much we can coach up and make better. And you imagine Decorian Moore blocking the right guy. How much faster do we get in the end zone? Maybe we put another touchdown on the board with that first string offense. There's just all those kind of ideas that just when you get everything as a football coach or a football player, and everybody is their perspective is I can get better every day. You look at those things where even you're successful and find out how to make them a little bit better, and eventually when you're facing a higher level opponent, it's just going to be that much worse. And again, the way I see it, I really feel for Oklahoma State. At least they're not talking as much as Colorado was coming into Autzen Stadium when they were. But I do feel like that, man, it does feel like they're already setting themselves up in a way. And if you're coming to Autzen Stadium, that's not the way to do it, because I'm telling you, somebody that's had enough false starts in Autzen Stadium, it's very, it'll happen. Probably way easier on the road.
What's your over under? If you had to say, give me your over under for how this for false starts, particularly dealing with this offensive line for Oklahoma State, which showed some, let's just call it, showed some wear in the armor a little bit.
My over under changes with one, and it depends on, are you going to be there, Sam?
I will be there.
All right, yeah, then we're going to take the under. Guy, unless you sell somebody your ticket with somebody with a little more bass in their voice.
How dare you? How dare you? We're gonna hit that $6 beer section, which, by the way, everybody, it's on the south side of Autzen. Just make your way around, you'll find it. Coors Light stand. I believe it's a Coors Light stand. $6 beer, south side. Get over there, be loud, do whatever you got to do.
See, that's why this guy's gonna be waiting in line. When, if you please sell your ticket to somebody that's gonna be there in their seat already, drunk enough to just be yelling already, like yours truly would be.
Nick, you assume I'm not the type to move to the inside of the bowl and walk through people's seats not to get back to mine in time. Don't be silly.
All right.
Don't be silly. But by the way, very quickly, just to give him the credit he deserves, Shamari Weir was the outside linebacker, edge rusher from UT Martin, who was absolutely just having a day against Oklahoma State. And he seemed like a very talented player. I dare say that guys like Mateo and Tatum and I said Rushing and Purchase and Washington, look at we can go on. We can go on. Oklahoma State has to be much better on the offensive line if they want to hold up in this game against Oregon.
Well, this is a team that can get gimmicky, and you know that's not anything outside of, and again, they haven't changed coaching staff in however long, so we understand how that can be. And it's crazy to think that a guy that I got to play against as a head coach is still coaching for the same college football team in this era. And I have to almost think, man, with the way things are constantly changing, that is a significant disadvantage, especially all the way out in Oklahoma State. I mean, all respect to the, all the Cowboys out there and the teams, especially teams we saw in the past. I mean, you got to see a fantastic Holiday Bowl last time these teams matched up. But man, it's such different times. It's crazy to see these programs once used to be on the same comparative ranking and levels, and now it's just, the resources and the investment that Oregon has made versus Oklahoma State has really benefited us, and now it's just taking off in the NIL era.
Well, and I mean, I think that's always going to lead to, a difference in talent, especially with this new system we have. Oregon, they do benefit from being able to bring in some of the best talent in the nation, and it's something that we all have to be grateful for as fans. One guy who does have a ton of talent, though, on this Oklahoma State team, who I was watching just absolutely tear things up against UT Martin, whose status might be a little bit up in the air after an incident this week, is Wendell Gregory, number 4. He is a problem. And I say that a lot, but we are dealing with a freshman, 6'3", 255 out of Marietta, Georgia. This cat got out there 3 sacks in this first game. He was a terror coming around the edge. I'll give credit to Oklahoma State. They did a pretty good job in general in the tackles for loss department. Jaleel Johnson, he was able to get 2.5. Brandon Rawls and Tajay McCoy each got 1.5. So these are going to be guys who are going to be doing their part to be disruptive and get in there and make a mess. And as we talked about, Oklahoma State does have a body type that you are just not going to see out of a Montana State. And probably you won't see out of I would say probably half of college football teams. I'd say Oklahoma State's probably in the top half of physicality overall if you were looking at the Power Five, Group of
Yep.
Five level. And frankly, I'm really excited to see how this Oregon offense is able to make things happen dealing with this type of a line and see how they deal with Gregory, especially, if he's out there playing and causing as much trouble as he was against UT Martin.
Yeah, and the most confident thing is already know with our best on best right here in Eugene, you're already seeing that kind of size. It you're one, two, three deep levels. So the way we've recruited, man, I'm sure that even on that practice squad, they're able to get a decent look out of those guys, being able to fix it up and give you a really good replica of the team you're able to face is such an important factor in college football we aren't able to really touch on because we don't get to see it. But man, that is going to be huge. And just with the bodies we have that we're able to send around in our two deep and say, hey, maybe, this week your goal will get you on the field, but right now you need to go give the ones a good look. We can do that on both sides of the ball, and that is a fantastic advantage to have in the game of college football, especially in this new era where it really is pay to play, man. And if Oregon wants to step up like we should, and we've said we will, and we came into the Big Ten and we did everything we said we were going to do, man, keystone species. We got to continue it from there. We've only got to, we got to reach the top with this team. And from everything I'm seeing from week 1, week 2 is going to tell me so much more. Can we do it? Can we not? And again, another part of that is going to be keeping everybody healthy. That's the one thing. I'll be hopefully there at GameWorks, but all my energy is going to be sending positive vibes down to Autzen Stadium. Just keep everyone healthy, man. That's the one thing that you never want to see injuries this early in the season, especially when these games are so much fun. The vibe is so energetic, even though the students aren't even there yet. It feels like everybody in the entire state of Oregon is behind this team and ready to see what they're able to bring in this second year in the Big Ten Conference.
Well, and that another part that makes me so excited about this game because until you really are in the throes of Big Ten play, which I know you've got Northwestern coming up the week after this, but I think that a lot of people would probably agree that physically maybe Northwestern doesn't align with the rest of the Big Ten the same way that Oklahoma State might, just strictly from a physical numbers on the page perspective. And that's something that I'm very excited to see Oregon get out there and deal with. I'm really excited to see this team be able to go play against a size and a stature and a frame that they're going to be seeing a lot more throughout this season. Also, for some of those young guys, just be able to get some matchups against some other guys who get some run, whether it's these corners who are going to have to be dealing with Gavin Freeman or Shamar Rigby or Terrell Davis, all guys who were able to make some plays last week despite there being some issues at quarterback. I'll be very, very, very happy from this Oregon team if they're able to get in, get out, play an efficient game. Is it going to be some big, crazy blowout? I guess you're going to have to find out here in a couple minutes when we give our scores. But I do think that this Oregon team has another chance to take another step down a path that, at least one step in, seems like a pretty good path to be on.
It's a great path. Not quite as great as Pat. Terrell Davis got an extra year of eligibility.
Right? Right?
Oh, that would be quite a great
Right?
path. Hey, if they get this 5-for-5 rule in, your boy might come back. I'm ready. I'm at playing weight, you guys. For those of you.
University of Puget Sound, be ready.
Oh, all right, all right. That's your all right. You got your receipt. You got your receipt, guys. This is the Once a Duck podcast. You know how we got to wrap it up. We got to end it here. We would love your comments below for your predictions. We've got to wrap it up here with the prediction, and I'm a little mixed right here. I really think there's that. Do we still see, again, maybe I was a little outlandish last week, but I wasn't too far off. I think, man, you have to determine, does Lanning really take all this talk in the media as seriously as he's felt his clapback is? And does his team respond that way? For me, I'm still determined. Sam, do you got a prediction right now on the score?
This is one that I'm very interested to see play out because obviously you were able to see Oregon just take it to Montana State, 9 scores on 9 drives. The only drive they didn't score on was the one they ended up kneeing out at the end of the ball game. And I think that while I don't exactly expect that exact same level of offensive productivity and efficiency, I do expect some degree of it because I think this Oregon team is so well balanced. The things they're able to do are so productive. And I'm actually going to predict a very similar score to the one I did last week, just because after watching this Oregon team from last week and watching Oklahoma State play the little I was able to be able to rewatch their game, it I really do think, especially with Oklahoma State missing their quarterback, that if Oregon is able to stop the run on first and second down, it is going to be a very, very long day for Oklahoma State. If Khabib Hicks isn't able to make things happen the minute he's touching the ball, there are going to be some really big problems for Oklahoma State. Because of that, final score prediction time, I'm going to go with very similar to last week, 45-13.
Ah, man, you're pretty close to mine. I'm just going to spit it out there. I'm going 48-10 for a lot of the same reasons. It's very similar and kind of calibrating, but there is a part of me that has that same vantage point I had last week of just maybe this team has that little bit of nasty that just says, all right, you want to talk about money? we'll we'll put our money where our mouth is. And I would love to see that on the field in a big blowout against a Big 12 team because, man, that would be fun. But either way, I want to see, more importantly, things cleaned up on the field again. I want to see low penalties. I want to see, again, with the stepped up competition, I want to see our quarterbacks being nice and secure and comfy. And I want to see all our downfield runs getting positive yardage and contact eh, past 2 yards. That's the biggest thing that's going to tell me this team is dominant up front, like we've seen. And again, not only is that with our offensive line, but out there on the wide receivers, that if you're not getting the ball, those guys are still able to push people down the field. How much extra yardage that creates, people cannot actually measure when you're watching the game. But at the end of the game, it plays out on tape. And I'm telling you, we've got the effort, we've got the belief in each other in the room. This could be a big blowout game, but I'm going to settle right in there with you and just say, hey, the Ducks take care of business, put their foot on the throats, and then let the defense and get a lot of people a lot of reps. That's going to be great, especially, with our next challenge being going on the road. Maybe not the biggest road challenge, but an in-conference team, you're still going to want to be able to get as many guys, as many reps as possible, so you know who that travel team is going to be.
Well, folks, as always, drop your predictions down below. Let us know how you think things are going to work out this week for the Oregon Ducks. Nick, before we get out of here, just a couple little housekeeping things. One question I did have for you: if you had to try to compare this Oregon matchup with Oklahoma State to any of the early season, I don't want to call them preseason because it's college football, everything counts, but any of these early season games you might have faced in your career, where do you think this one might closest align? It's going to be hard to find an exact one for one, but what do you think might be closest?
I mean, none. Well, we did have Utah come in, and when they weren't in the conference, that was a competitive team. But there's really not any. Even past my years, I think the closest we can get is just a couple years past my time. Tennessee coming in when that program was not ready to be on the road in Autzen Stadium. That's where I kind of, and maybe it's just I don't like that color orange, my hate for Oregon State, my hate for Oklahoma State, whatever it is, man, and Tennessee. Let's get it all in there. If it's orange, it just looks wrong on a football uniform, unless it's Tampa Bay creamsicle. Other than that, get it out of here. So, other than that, guys, I'm just gonna say I don't see a lot of comparisons. This is going to be a very unique game because we don't, again, their main quarterback out. They're already making excuses about money. We don't even necessarily know what the team we have is, but I'm excited to see what we go out with this opportunity to show it on the field against the Big 12 because, man, this will be a great opportunity to just show conference to conference like what the comparison is. And obviously, people are going to go back when it gets to the postseason and remark upon this win or lose, whatever it is, this is going to be one of those points, those non-conference games that they make way big a deal out of when they weren't even watching it. So this is one of those ones that it doesn't hurt to go ahead and unload in the stat sheet.
And folks, if you're not able to be there in Austin to watch it, of course, this one will be on CBS at 12:30. Of course, the great Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson will be on the call for that one. Two
Or go to
legendary voices.
Seattle. Come to Seattle and go to GameWorks. Let's
Go to
go.
Seattle. Yeah, if you're in Seattle, go to GameWorks. Go hang out with Nick. And if you're in Eugene for this one, come say what's up, man. We're going to be there. It's going to be a good time. Again, shout out to all of our friends that we like to tailgate with that are nice enough to invite us over every single time. We appreciate you guys. Let us know what you want us to bring. We're bringing it. It's all good. Just tell us. Let us know. Also, folks, as always, you can follow him at Nick R. Cody. You can follow me at Samuel101TS. And you can follow everything Once a Duck at Once a Duck. Nick, is there anything else we got to take care of before getting out of here?
Only thing we got to say is how we close it out every time. Once a duck, always a duck. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys, and see you in Autzen Stadium.